It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the FAU Track and Field coach of Alex Smolka. How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about your coaching experience and how you got started?
Sure. Basically, I competed. I started sports actually very young. I grew up in Austria. I primarily actually played soccer. I ran track. I actually skied as well. And then based off my own love of the sport, once I ended up we moved from Austria to England. I finished high school in England, where I also ran track and played soccer. I ended up coming to the States. Um, I was a student athlete myself. And quite frankly, I was looking into becoming more of a professor. I didn't really think about coaching as much until my senior year of college. And then I had the opportunity to coach a couple of local high schools in the Amherst, Massachusetts area. And out of coaching those couple of high school teams, I fell in love with the idea of coaching, and I saw coaching as an extension of teaching. Um, and it sort of like grew from there. After leaving Amherst, I ended up getting a graduate degree at Northeastern University, and I was a graduate assistant at Northeastern. Um, After which I was looking for opportunities, and really by chance came across Florida Atlantic, which at the time didn't have um, cross country or track programs. It was just moving from it was actually before, it was still a Division II school. It just added men's and women's cross country without scholarships as a Division II sport. And I sent, back then there was no emails yet. I sent letters. I got a reply. I came from the Northeast. I came down for an interview, and then I started actually part time. I was an assistant coach, and then just to make some extra money, I also did some academic advising, and sort of slowly grew into becoming a full-time coach. It took me a while. I came to Florida Atlantic in 1992 and didn't become a full-time coach until 2002. So it took about 10 years to transition from, you know, part-time coaching to full-time coaching, which also was because the university only had a small cross-country program until they added football. And once they added football on the men's side, um, to be in compliance with gender equity, they had to add a women's sport. So they added women's track and field to the in addition to women's cross country. And so in 2002, I ended up becoming a full-time coach, coaching the entire women's program and the men's cross country program. And then only in 2006 did we add women's indoor track. So the full women's program has only been in existence since 2006. And on the men's side, we just have men's cross country.
That's amazing. Can you talk about, of course, starting up the track and field for women's and what that was like?
It was challenging in the sense that you know, anytime you have a brand new program, you have to find student athletes who are willing to take a chance. There is no, uh, without having a history, there's nothing that you can sort of like sell them on in regards to come to us, and you'll be able to break school records and so on, because there were no school records. So it certainly was challenging in that regard. Also, back then we didn't have a facility on campus yet, so we had to use local high school tracks to train on, which, for anybody who's a good student athlete coming out of high school isn't very appealing. So that was challenging. And then also we didn't, we weren't fully funded, so we didn't have a lot of scholarship money. So in terms of, not being able to offer them a lot of money, not being able to offer them a lot of history, and not being able to offer them a facility, took some convincing. And, slowly but surely, we were able to, attract, I would say, more competitive student athletes, and we slowly started moving up the ranks in our first conference, which was the Atlantic Sun Conference. But it took a couple of years to get more and more competitive, which I guess every new program has growing pains, but that was certainly our challenge, to try and convince people to take a chance on us.
Can you talk about, of course, the 2014 and 2015 season being the first indoor track and field Conference USA champs?
Absolutely. So we we had only switched. We were in the Sun Belt Conference. Once football came about, the university switched from the Atlantic Sun to the Sun Belt Conference, which was definitely a step up in competition. And then again, in 2013, we switched from the Sun Belt, where we had competed pretty well, and we're pretty strong. We went to Conference USA, which again, suddenly we were the small fish in a big pond. And so it was extremely exciting to be able to have a couple of indoor champions fairly soon coming into the conference, because again, we certainly stepped up in the level of competition quite a lot.
What was the 2018 and 2019 successful season like?
It was a great experience. As many years as we had coached, and it was our sprints and hurdles coach, as well as myself, both have a number of years of experience, underneath our belt. But it was the first time that we actually had somebody qualify for nationals. We've had very good athletes on the I would say on the conference level, on the NCAA regional level, but that was the first time we really had somebody who was close to world class. So being able to experience that season, going to NCAA nationals for the first time, with a student athlete, it made a lot of history for the program and us. So it was very exciting.
Can you talk about, of course, building the cross country versus the track and field program?
Absolutely. I think when we built the program, the biggest thing was it took it took some convincing for people to come. Then once the first wave came, it was a little bit easier to convince others to come. But the biggest challenge, I think, is in our situation, to get fast Floridians to come to our program versus going to Florida State in Florida. The big powerhouse programs in this state are definitely Florida and Florida State. So it's sometimes challenging to recruit in-state kids against those big programs. And then on the out-of-state side, sometimes when you recruit kids from the New York area, the Michigan area, which predominantly have very good cross-country high school programs, it's sometimes a little bit challenging to convince them to come down here, because the temperatures in August, September, October are certainly hot and steamy. I would say then they're not used to South Florida weather during those months. So and that I would say building a cross-country program down here takes a little bit of a different approach, because you can't quite do the same things that you can do in a colder climate. We use a lot of other resources. We try and use the pool quite a bit. We do other cross-training methods to make sure that we can get the aerobic work done without getting burnt out, so to speak, in the sun.
Can you talk about, of course, the recruitment process at FAU?
We're basically FAU, even though nationally, it's obviously not as well known as Florida and Florida State, for example. We do have a fairly high academic standard, so we're looking for student athletes who excel in the classroom and are also able to combine their academic and athletic interests and realize that in order to be great, you have to make some tough choices. So, it takes a special person to realize that maybe Friday night, I should really go to bed early because I have a Saturday morning long run, and I don't have. I'm not going to go out with my friends who might not have to get up at 6 in the morning on a Saturday. So I think making choices in recruiting and finding people who are willing to really find out what their potential is what's most important. We look, obviously, it's important that they have they have talent, but I think work ethic and commitment and just character are I would say almost more important than talent.
What would an official visit look like for track and field and cross country?
Typically, we have people. Usually, we try and have people stay with potential teammates rather than hotels. A lot of times, when people come to visit campuses, programs put them up in hotels. What we try and do is actually have them stay with current team members in the residence halls to make them really understand what it would be like to be on the team. And I think the other thing is that we really try and have them spend as much time as possible with current team members, because those are the people that are going to be around most of the day. So I think by having a good team chemistry and by having strong team leaders, it's going to help us to recruit people who are like-minded. And so we obviously do spend some time with the student athletes as they come to visit, and we show them the facilities and we have them meet with the academic advisors, and we sort of do very similar things to most programs. I think the one thing that hopefully sets us apart is that we try and really have them meet the team as much as possible, because team members are going to be honest with them, and if they like coach, if they don't like coach, what they like, what they don't like. I think the prospect, the recruit, is going to get the best possible picture of what the program is like. I would hate for somebody to come and commit to us thinking that we are one thing when we're really something else. I mean, I want people to know what they're letting themselves into, because that's the best way for them to be happy throughout their career at FAU.
That's amazing. What would a typical meet look like for FAU?
Typically, we don't host any track meets ourselves. We do host one cross country meet, but typically if it's a meet that's fairly local, we typically leave campus the day before the meet. Anything that's in the state of Florida, we drive to it. So let's say if there's a meet that's on a Saturday morning in Orlando, we typically leave campus at about 10 o'clock on a Friday morning. We drive up to Orlando. we have a snack, we go to the hotel, the kids rest for a couple hours, then we do an easy light practice. We call it a shakeout. That late afternoon, we have dinner. We have a team meeting after dinner. Saturday morning, we compete basically, and then whenever the meet is over, we have a post meet dinner. Um, we'll load them back on the vans and we'll drive back to Boca, and we get back to Boca, late that evening.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, anything out of state we fly to, so then it's just a couple extra days and so on. But the same principle. We try and get them rested as much as possible in the hotels before the meet, and then we compete and we travel back home.
Can you talk about, of course, what you plan to accomplish this upcoming season as COVID cut your season short?
Yes, I mean, we were just we had a very very short cross country season. We just had one regular season meet, and then we had the conference championships because of all the uncertainties. We didn't know if we're gonna have an indoor season until about a day and a half ago. We just found out that we actually were approved to travel indoors. So we'll have a shortened indoor season, but the exciting thing is that we will be able to travel indoors. The uniqueness of this year is that, whenever we travel, we obviously have to have masks on. We even the weeks that we don't travel, we have to get COVID tested once a week. The week of travel, we have to get tested twice before the competition and then once after the competition to make sure everybody is COVID free. So there's a lot of extra anxiety, because normally you're nervous before you compete anyway, but now you're also nervous, am I gonna test negative, positive, so you're worried about the whole COVID experience. Then we have to travel in if we travel in airplanes, we have to have masks on. If we're in our vans, we have to have masks on. So we travel with masks the whole time. Then we get to meet, then we compete. So I think it's just added nervousness, those are the biggest challenges this year, to make sure that we're still able to compete. Also, again, I'm always trying to find flexibility with travel as well, because we book our hotels, but then God forbid if somebody tests positive, and then depending on contact tracing, we might lose a whole bunch of people. So then we would actually need less hotel rooms. So we're trying to find flexibility in the hotel contracts. So there's a whole big new aspect of travel outside of the actual competitions this year because of COVID.
What advice would you give upcoming track players looking to play track?
Coming from high school, the biggest thing I would tell them is a couple of things. One, to really think about the fact that being a good track and field athlete is really a lifestyle. So they should really think about what's important to them and what they want to experience over their 4 years in college, and the fact that they have to make, in order to achieve the goals that they would like to achieve, they have to make daily choices. We always tell them that being on a team is completely voluntary, but once you make that decision to be on a team, it comes with certain responsibilities. So my biggest advice coming from high school is realize, I don't like the idea of people saying, well, college sports is like a job. It's more like a lifestyle. So I think to realize, unlike high school, where you basically participate a couple hours after each day, after each school day, and then the season is fairly short, and then you're done with it. It's really once you enter college sports, it's really a lifestyle. And even though the 2 hours of practice each day are important, they're honestly not as important as the choices you make the other 22 hours a day. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you doing your homework? Is anything else stressing you out? When people transition from high school to college, it's not just the academic stress that gets more. You also now suddenly have roommates that are not your family. You have, at home, you might have mom and dad telling you to make sure to brush your teeth and go to bed. In the dorm room, that's not the case. So I think trying to explain to them that, it's something completely new, and it's something that can be amazing and it can be a great experience, but it's something to really think about. So I think that's the one aspect I always try and make sure they understand, so that they don't get disappointed. And then the other aspect I would tell any student athlete in high school is, really look at your college choices. Try and talk to your high school coach, and try and be very open and honest with yourself to see how good am I, like what's the right fit for me. A lot of people only look at Division I schools, or they only look at Power 5 schools, but maybe I can excel and be a national champion at the Division II, at the Division III, at the NAIA level. Really try and honestly assess where you stand, and look at the programs that you're looking at, and find out where you would fit in to those programs. I think that's most important in the overall scheme of trying to find a place that's good for you.
That's great advice. What advice would you give upcoming coaches looking to get into the industry?
Try and really find a program where you can be a grad assistant or volunteer. It's very hard to leave college or leave the undergraduate school and find an immediate place that pays you. So I think what's most important is to find a place that where you can hopefully maybe get your graduate school paid for, where you have a small amount of responsibility, and you can see what every other coach does around you. And hey, I don't know, I'm trying to and make sure that you're able to experience not just the events that you participated in, but other events as well. For example, if I was a distance runner, at collegiate level, but I'm looking into getting into coaching, don't just look at distance coaching positions, but try and actually get some expertise in the throwing events, the jumping events, the sprinting events. If you're able to be multifaceted, you'll have a better ability to really find a coaching position. And then the other thing is, you do have a number of different certifications that you can do to get certified as a coach, which again makes you much more marketable, having the certifications. So I would say those are my biggest advices.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with FAU Track and Field program at?
We have a team Twitter account, Instagram account, Facebook page, and then I'm honestly, I don't use social media as much as I probably should for the team, but we do have mine is just Alex Smolka, at Alex Smolka, but the FAU Instagram and Twitter accounts are probably the best way to keep up with what we do.
Thank you again for your interview, and best of luck in your future with FAU in this upcoming season.
Thank you so much for having me on, and your show is excellent. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Smolka, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thank you so much.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.